Hi guys, so we're going to move on to our second square now. Sorry it's taken me so long to do. Second square is called the Moana Garland, and as you can see from the previous picture, there are new yarn colours to use for this one. So we've got the cyan, hibiscus and also the white. We're going to stick with our 4mm crochet hook that we used for our first square. Yes, mine does look a little different than the one included with the issue because I've got my own set of crochet hooks, which are just a bit easier to use. They're a bit more comfortable in the hand when you're crocheting for a long time. But this won't make any difference at all to your final outcome of how things look. They're all the same size. So to start off with, we need our cyan yarn, which is the blue. It's easier just to call it blue from here on out. So we've got this one, and I need to find the end of the yarn, which is here. And I'm just going to unravel this quite a bit, because otherwise when you're crocheting you tend to run out of yarn. So the more you've got unravelled, which I'm now going to do off camera, the more you've got unravelled, the easier it is to crochet with. So I've done all that, and as you can see, I now got a nice mess in my lap of what I'm going to use. Make sure you don't unravel too much, actually, saying that, because otherwise it will end up getting all knotted while it's in your lap. So just perhaps unwind it about 10 times around the ball of yarn, and then you've got a decent amount. And what I tend to do is when I feel that the amount that I've got that's unravelled is getting too short, I will then go back and unravel a bit more. So as you can see from my fancy new screen behind my hook there, which is now completely white, I have invested in some new equipment to film the videos. So I've got a light box which is giving me the white light so you can see everything a bit clearer, and it also means that I don't have to wait for particular days where it's sunny outside so I can film and you can see everything, because the lights where I am are a bit terrible. So yeah, that's all good. I'm very excited, eager to go, so let's get started, I guess. So we want to begin, as per the last video, with a slip knot on our hook. So putting my hook down, I'm just going to twist these so I have a loop, put my index finger and my thumb through that loop, grab the yarn on the other side, hold these two tails beneath it and pull that loop tight. And then I will pull both ends to make it a bit smaller before putting it on my hook, and then pull both ends so that it is on my hook. Not too tight, it needs to be able to move up and down. And then you can see, as always, we've got the non-working yarn, or the NWY, on the right hand side there. Move that down. And then we've got the working yarn, or the WY, on the left. So let's get on with our square. So the first instruction of our Moana square is to chain 26 stitches. So as per the first video for our chain stitches, we've got our non-working yarn in our right hand, this is if you're right-handed, and our working yarn in our left. So wrap that yarn over from back to front, pinch your non-working yarn between those two fingers, and then use your right hand to move the hook and to pull that through, and you've got your first chain on your hook. And we're going to do that, so we've got 26 on the hook. I'll just do that now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. So we've got our set of chain stitches just here. So now we need to learn a new stitch. It's different from the first square, and the pattern says to chain into the third stitch away from the hook. So the third stitch away from the hook is the one just above my left thumbnail. If you can count down and see from the hook, ignore the loop that is on the hook already. We have got 3 V's just there. Can you see them? If I move it, you should be able to see them moving. So we've got 3 V's away from our hook, and we want to go into the third one. So this is our first half treble stitch. And we do this, and the way it is different is because we loop over before we go into the stitch. So we've looped over there. We're then going to find that hole, which is this one, which is our third away from the hook, and we're going to put our hook through that loop. As always, yarn over the hook again and pull through, and then you will then find that you've got 3 loops on the hook. From here, I'm going to pass back over. Make sure that one is tight enough on the hook so they are all the same tension. Ignore the fact that I've just yarned over. As you can see at the moment, that first loop there is pretty loose compared to the other 2. We don't want that. Make sure you hold that tension so that it is the same, and when you pull on that there, they should be all the same height. Otherwise you're going to end up with a pretty ununiform stitch. So hold that in your left again, hold the non-working yarn or the stitches, chain stitches, in your right hand again, in between your 2 fingers, yarn over, and then just pull that loop through all 3 stitches that are on your hook. So I'll just show you that stitch again. We want to yarn over and then go into the next loop. So that big gap is where we've just stitched into. So we need to go into this hole here, which is the next chain stitch along. So we're going to go into that loop and then pull the yarn through. And again, we've got 3 loops on the hook. Make sure they are the same height. Yarn over and pull through again. And you've then got 2 stitches on there. I'm now going to go to the end of the row off camera, and we'll meet you when we're at the end of the row. So I've gone all the way to the end. My hook is now on the left, and this is how your first row should look. If you look up close, you will see, as per the last stitches, we've still got those V's on top that we're going into when we stitch, but our stitches do look different this time. If I pull that, you can see the gaps in between each stitch, and yes, if you need to count them, either count the V's on the top or count each one of those stitches to make sure you've got enough. Every gap means a new stitch. But as per the last video, what I do when I'm crocheting is to make sure that I count each stitch as I go, and we knew that we needed 24 stitches along this row, and I do have the 24. Slightly different to the last video. When we get to the end of the row, these stitches are actually taller than the last square, so we need to make sure that our chain stitches at the end of each row, we are not just doing one, but we're doing two to compensate for the height. So I'm going to yarn over once and pull through, and then I'm going to yarn over again. I then need to turn my work the other way around, and then we are going to yarn over and continue with the same stitch, the half treble. These here that look different to the rest of our work that we've just done, the ones just above my middle finger there on the right, those are our two chains that we have just done, and we don't want to stitch into them. We are going to stitch into our first V. We turn it over, which is this one here. So you can see the two chains there, and that's our first stitch here. Turn it back over, and it's this stitch here that we have done, and we want to go into that hole here because this one here, as per the last video, is our chain stitch. So let's pull that one tight, and we're going to yarn over, and then we're going to go into this hole as per the last video. Going through, yarn over, pull through, going over, and then into that second stitch here, pull the loop through, yarn over, so we've got our 4 loops, and then pull the loop through again, and that is what it looks like when we have got our first 2 stitches of our second row. I'm going to again go along to the end, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks. So we've got our first 2 rows. We need to carry on with the second row in exactly the same way until we've got the amount of rows that the pattern calls for. I can't mention that on camera because of copyright. So I have just got to the end of my square and finished doing that one. It does measure around 14 by 14. I can't quite fit it all in front of the camera. When you finish, because you're finishing on an odd numbered row, you will find that you finish on the right hand side, and the tail of your original non-working yarn should be on the bottom right, and that's how you know which side is the front of your square. You will see the lines on it like this. If you turn it over, it is pretty much exactly the same. So I've pulled that loop loose there, so I didn't lose where I was. I'm just going to undo that one, and I did create an extra chain there. So what I'm going to do from there, I just get my hook back in that last loop, is I'm just going to go over and pull that loop through. If we pull that as tight as we can without ripping it, of course, then that shows that one there, and then that one's completely finished. Apart from the sewing part, which, yes, I'm well aware, is everyone's worst nightmare. We all hate the sewing. Now, personally, I'm one of those people when it comes to the sewing that will just try to cut the yarn as close to the knot as possible and just pray that it doesn't come undone. But I guess you just have to factor in, if you're ever going to become a seller of your crochet work someday, then it's got to be done the professional and better looking way. But I really can't help thinking that if you can see both sides of an item like you'll be able to on a blanket like this, then there's going to be a point where you can see short ends sticking out. I've always thought there must be a better way than this. If anyone knows a way, please comment and let me know. Because in all the years I've been doing this, I still haven't found one. Okay, so I've, on that long piece of working yarn we've just cut, I've gone ahead and threaded it through the darning needle, and then we're simply just going to weave it in and out through the top stitches. So in that one, and then I'm going every two and pull it through. And pull it through. It just makes it look so ugly. I can't understand why we need to do it. Apologies with my thumb there, it's making the camera go out of focus. But honestly, really, if anyone has a better way of doing the darning in of the ends, please let me know. I hate sewing. For example, I've had this issue of the Disney Crochet magazine with the Moana flowers for at least 4 weeks now. Only got around to doing it today because I knew that there were 6 flowers that I'd have to sew on. I don't want to. But I guess there's always got to be a small sacrifice for doing something that you love. So I've gone all the way to the end. And then I'm just going to pull the needle out. I will then snip that one as close as I can without catching my work. And then what I tend to do is I will pull my work slightly because it will then pull in that end. But if we turn over, that end, whilst it's hidden now, it's always going to come loose. Always. I know it will. But for now, it's tidy. And there's our square complete. We have got that other end to sew in. I will do that one off camera. So I guess I shall see you in the next video for how to make the Moana flowers and then how to applique them to our square. See you shortly.